John Paul Lalonde.
Here.
Larry Well.
Here.
Steve Bishop.
Here.
Ron Russell.
Here.
And Dick Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Morrison is on his way.
Okay. Item 2, acceptance of the March 2022 minutes.
I do need to make an adjustment to those minutes. That was an in-person meeting, not a Google Meets.
Okay. Any other adjustments?
Nope, I think I got your pack.
Oh, no, that's everybody's.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Move to accept.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. Item 3, applications for vacant board seat. Rich, do you want to?
So you should have a one-page application from Mr. Keith Nealand. Lives out on the Bucks Mills Road here in Bucksport. And then an application a second time for Mr. Joseph Davanzo. He initially submitted this application August 30th. This is a 3-page application if you had a chance to take a look at it. If you remember correctly, he was on the agenda last month, and then we had a resignation after that last meeting, so this we're back to 10, and we need to get to 11.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any discussion that the board would like to have, or any questions. I can help out as much as I can. I have about the same amount of information that you have in front of you. I know Mr. Nealon ran for school board. I know Mr. Davanzo ran for town council. And he is on...
He's still on the Board of Appeals?
He's on the Board of Appeals, thank you. That was the other... He is on a board. I'm not sure if Mr. Nealon is on a board or not. It's not here at the town office, if he is.
Okay.
And what's the business that his father-in-law runs and his wife?
I don't know that myself.
I couldn't get that information in time for tonight's meeting.
I move to recommend Joe.
Anyone else?
Where's the vacancy going?
Rob Carmichael submitted his resignation after our last Economic Development Committee meeting.
I'll second Larry's recommendation.
We have a motion and a second to move forward Joe Davanzo for the Economic Development Committee board. All in favor?
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So we'll make sure we're going down the right path.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank them both for applying, Rich. Item 4 is the tagline.
So we started this a little while ago, a few meetings back. I had mentioned that the group in the office was working on the website. Dick Peterson happened to be the community member with his background that was involved. So it's the town manager, myself, the code enforcement officer, and the assessor who's actually taking on the role of the website. And we were talking about a tagline because the company doing the website really thought it'd be nice to have the tagline up at the same time. So we've tried this in different iterations, either through the marketing committee, through the marketing plan, and Sue throughout. We've got a lot of history. We are a community, and there's lots of opportunity here. So she threw out Bucksport history, community, and opportunity, and for some of us, it really resonated. But definitely, if the board has other ideas or different, it's always hard for 100% of the people to agree on something. And when we did this through the design lab, it was very hard to get a consensus.
I agree. So you're just looking for a recommendation on this, or?
Yeah, if the board would like to make a recommendation on that. I mean, if everybody's opposed to it, then obviously it's probably not the right way to go. Right now, it's rich in heritage looking to the future.
We could make it fishy. I'd like to take a different approach. I sat down and listed all the things that I like, that I think are pretty cool about the town. The citizens, number one, the view, the waterfront, the trails, the outback, the ponds and ponds and lakes, and of course the history. And I came up with one word that describes every one of those, and that's charming.
Charming.
So I thought Bucksport, charming.
Charming.
One
Charming.
word. I think it would get people possibly to turn left. You know, what's charming? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
It's a good thought.
Typically, your taglines aren't much more than 3. If you think of Nike, just do it.
Yep.
Of course, that's the first one that comes to mind, but there's a lot.
Ron? Yeah. Any input?
I hadn't really thought about it, so I wouldn't, charming isn't what I think of when I think of Bucksport, probably. That sounds, to me, softer than I see the town.
It's becoming softer.
Well, it may, but you know, just through the years, all the years that I've been around, it's like, it's just been a grittier place than that. I mean, I wouldn't have found the Crow's Nest charming, or some of our other things along the way. I mean, I worked in the mill one summer, it wasn't
Those are all gone.
charming.
That's what I mean, it's
To me.
changing, it's changing.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it, at least for the last few years, for me, as more a town that's been sort of not stuck in what it was, but it was what it was. I mean, it was a mill town and everything else, and I think of it more now as transition, changing,
Evolving.
and what you hope is that it doesn't change and get rid of what it had.
But charming says, and I'm just trying to go there,
Yeah,
because I never thought of charming either. But charming says it's comfortable, it's a good place to be. You know, you're trying to attract people, so I can see where Larry's trying to go on the charming.
yeah, I mean, I certainly get it, I think it's,
Yeah.
but,
So, and I see where you are as well.
well, I'm not saying don't do that, I'm
No.
just saying it isn't what I thought of.
Exactly, but what are people thinking when they come across that bridge? What do we want them to think? That's really what I think Larry's trying to point out is
Something warm?
something, yeah, a comfortable
I think
place.
looking at those 3 words that are down here,
Yep.
they're just words. You know, I mean, I
This
think
three.
a word that might be better than that might be welcoming, or something like that. Or.
Charming opens up a whole different level.
I
Not-
went
not-
one step further, and I
Not that I
kind of jumped the gun here
The logo.
on the logo.
Yeah, you did too.
Yeah.
What program did you do that on, Larry?
But along with charming, take a logo, it has to be this logo, sure, I'm kind of an hashtag. But you can actually make a charm, like a Lucky Charm, as a souvenir from Bucksport.
I like that idea.
Charming.
Yep.
You know, you could do a lot of things with it.
Of course, we can take out the smokestacks now, we're not polluting anymore.
Part of history.
No, I know where you're going, I knew where you were going. I like the foot. A lot of thought. Larry, this is wonderful. A lot of thought you gave.
What's the other sort of monolith back there, Larry?
That's the monument in front of Jim Crowder.
Yeah, you got the trough.
No, I got the trough, but behind it, the
The
tall
library.
one. What is it?
The
library.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, on the side there.
Was that the Rufus Coogan's?
He went all out.
Rufus Coogan's. Across from the Monument Park, across from the Jed Browder.
There's stuff, there's nothing real good on
No, I think what you're saying, Steve, you're saying this is from the library,
here.
correct?
That's the
Yeah, it's on the side of the steps.
Yep.
That's an example
Mhm.
of what you could do.
And I do like the aspect of a charm. I mean, that could be translated into something
Many things,
tangible.
yeah. It's interesting, I'd never thought of it.
So, Rich, what would be the, is this a recommendation to the council? Is it a recommendation that we bring forward to the community?
How you, Jim?
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jim. We have a spot right up there for you.
What would be the,
Do we have an
I
extra
feel
one of
we
those?
have adequate community input on this? I think you almost need something like that.
Rich, what was the thought on how to move forward with tagline?
I'll tell you, when we had the marketing campaign and the folks who sat in on that, I believe there was 11 of us, and we couldn't even get to 50% on any one. And I'm not saying to not invite the public in that, but realize what you might get is all over the spectrum, which is fine. But trying to narrow it down. Bucksport means so many different things to so many different people, for the people who've been here their whole lives, who know a way of living, who know and breathe Bucksport. Then you have the new people and why they moved to Bucksport and what their perception is. When I think of tagline, I think of just do it. Nike. If I hear just do it, I know that means Nike. And what's that mean to me or to you, or any tagline that you know of? What does it mean? Because Bucksport means so much. I mean, Larry, I couldn't even keep up with all the words that Larry rattled off until he came to charming. But Ron's definition of charming could be different of that of what Larry's thinking, and that's maybe why he sees it a little differently. We can open it up to the public, and that's not necessarily a bad idea. This is something that could potentially continue to be dragged. We've been going over this for over a year now,
Yeah.
and it can continue to drag out, and that's not.
But it's going to hold us back eventually from moving forward with marketing and whatnot.
It could. That's why the branding.
Charming looks good on Google. Nothing else on that.
Well, yeah, and that's the
I
other thing.
guess
Yeah.
I'm just concerned that all the efforts we've made in this town in the last 5 years to include the community, and all we've had is 11 people who are at a marketing presentation, and in the Economic Development Committee, and we come up with a recommendation to the council. I think we're gonna say, wait a minute, what about everything we've done, all the community involvement and what's made this town charming?
So like an open house kind of thing, or
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting we necessarily open it up to ideas, but at least some presentation on it and allows their input
For the council or for the town?
for the town.
So the Bay Festival might be a good idea. Pick a booth, see if you can get some sort of, something
Competing.
something to run, or some sort of feedback or vote during that time frame.
There's a lot of tools we learned in Heart and Soul that I think can, bring some of that back in. I just think we get more buy-in, and I understand what you're saying. It could really slow up the process, but if we don't get buy-in on it, I think it could go south on us.
I think, you want to get it right this time.
I gotta tell you though, just charming leaves a question mark.
It does.
Like, do I want to investigate?
That's what I was thinking too, Steve. This is exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Because Ron brought up, I think, welcoming before.
Yep.
And that's how I felt when I moved here just over 5 years ago, very welcoming place. But you could almost say that of many different places. But charming makes you think. I'm just saying, Larry took some time here, and as I'm going through this, I'm going, wow, this makes you think. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if we, figure out a way for a presentation to the town with some ideas all set up and maybe take on some more ideas.
Wait, but if you want that to be a recommendation, why don't we make it a motion and we can
Work on it from there.
you take it to the council that, this committee's recommendation is that we open it up to some proposals, or if you think that's not going to slow us down.
Well, we're already being slowed down.
What is it? What is it?
No, we got slowed down too long on branding that it just got done.
We have. We've
It
been
just got
slowed
done
down
because
too long.
because it's holding other groups back, and then people are jumping off the train and going back to what we were doing before and doing their own thing and
It's
not
not,
even doing what the town's trying to do, which is the reason why we did the marketing plan. Then you got people complaining in the newspaper that we're spending $10,000 on these plans and we don't even do what the plans
Nobody else
say.
is using this in the state, I'll bet.
According to Google, it's nowhere.
Google came up with a Disney movie, and Charming was a town, and the Sons of Anarchy movie. That's all that came up with Google. So that's all that I could find in the 2 seconds that I looked right here. I mean, I'm not in front of my computer doing a research mission, but that's what instantly came up. So there's a lot of room for something. Yeah, that's what it looked like. Yeah.
What's the committee's pleasure?
Anybody have a motion for one direction or another?
Putting something in the enterprise, has that worked in the past?
Not really, I don't think.
But could it be a enterprise Facebook?
Enterprise
In Facebook.
and Facebook,
Yeah.
and ask for people's opinions.
But to ask for an opinion, it seems like we need at least two, if not.
I feel like the Facebook thing is much less informal. I mean, it's much more informal, and it would get more activity.
It would get
I
active.
think that's a good idea, because that would, and it's,
Are you saying put it in Facebook, but put several of the different things that have been presented?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Or are we looking for iterations on?
What I would say, put in that we're looking for a tagline for Bucksport that would be from 1 to 3 words.
yeah.
And what if we say, look for submissions and then do as, I think you said, Steve, at the Bayfest,
Yeah,
Come
something
up
like
with-
that.
I'd rather see something that says, here's our choices that we've been working on, whatever they are, charming, and you can put other, something like that, but make them try to pick one.
I can see Rich's head spinning, I just don't know if.
I mean, to me, I'm ready to go with charming, because the other ones didn't set me on fire at all.
But when I opened this up,
Yes.
and I read this I'm like, you know what, that's pretty accurate. That's pretty good.
They're all good.
So if you laid that out with the history, community, opportunity, along with the charming, and gave those for 2 options, and left your third option as other, and wrote that up on a Facebook scenario, and saw what you got from feedback on that, that would give you information.
That's right.
Which is what we're after.
And do we want it in Facebook or a more formal setting where people could come in? You'll probably get more answers in Facebook because
It's easier.
it's easier.
Yep.
And still, there's the angst with COVID of people coming in and coming to meetings and whatnot.
If you're looking for a commitment, then you're going to want to hold a more formal vote. But if you're looking for information and flavor, Facebook in an informal setting will give it to you.
You can also ask the question, would you like a different
If the
place,
overwhelming,
left a different place to express your opinion?
Charming history.
so do we need a motion then for that?
I think we ought to also incorporate somehow the enterprise. For a certain segment of the community, that's, I think it's.
Yeah, not everybody has a computer or. So Facebook.
And maybe it ought to be mentioned at a town council meeting, so those who are watching town council.
Do you need some kind of recommendation on this? Are we recommending to the council to go this route?
I think if we approach it to bringing up to the town council meeting, that we're looking at creating a tagline for the town. We've had certain ideas, but we're looking for public input. And it'll be announced that way at the council meeting, and then do a similar thing on Facebook as well as in the Bucksport Enterprise.
Okay.
So I don't think we need a motion to do that. I think if the committee wants me to do that, I can do that. I think that's
Okay.
easy enough, and I understand.
I think we've got enough of a consensus here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Larry, that's excellent work you
Yeah, I
did,
like
by the
that,
way.
Larry.
I mean, really, taking time to do that.
So item 5, branding, #1 U.S. small coastal town.
If you haven't seen the signs, there were brand new signs put up to replacing the two that were in, to say the least, very rough shape. The one on Verona Island was taken down and it's been down for almost 8 months to 9 months. We've been, it pretty much fell down on its own. And then the one at the wastewater treatment plant needed some work on it. It was faded. You couldn't even tell what the back said. What the back says now is similar to what it said before, but now you can see it. So that's what people are calling us. McDonald's had it on their sign as well, proud to be part of the #1 small coastal U.S. town.
Yep.
And hey, if you use that brand for a year, at least it's there. You'll see it in the special section of the Bangor Daily News this week. I took an ad out for the town and put that in there. Because that's what people are calling us, so let's go with that. Like I said, even if it's a year,
No, I understand. And it looks better than the signs that were there.
I was just curious, is that something that's an annual thing and we really have to identify 2022? Or,
I didn't put dates on. Yeah, I didn't put dates on the sign. The thing with branding is 70% of companies that do branding fail. Branding is tough. We've had people say, we're the scariest town, and then when you look up scariest town in Maine, it doesn't come up as Bucksport. So when you do branding, you try to appease everybody, and sometimes you're trying to brand to the internal customer as well as the external customer. And where a fact was, there was a poll in the USA Today through the folks from their experience with the Heart and Soul that. And we were voted #1 U.S. small coastal town. It seemed like a good way to go.
Yeah, because we're charming.
Oh, cow.
I prefer to think of us as quaint.
You sold and he bought. That's how that went.
All right, so item
Think of that too.
item 7 is new business. Rich, do you have any new business?
The former building in the industrial park that was Central Maine Cold Storage has been sold. The sale date was April 1st. We should be getting more information on the business here shortly. We'll do a ribbon cutting for them and everything. The Water World 2 was sold, and I just had the name put up at the sign at the industrial park. That's American Mussel Harvesters, so we have a second mussel processing plant in the industrial park. Huckleberry's has moved from its location on Main Street to further down on Main Street where the Cancer Support Center Maine, Barb Vidum, was at the bottom of 3rd and Main Street, the yellow building. Jack and Diane Gordon bought that. So now on 3rd Street, you have one business on the bottom of Main and 3rd, and then you have 3rd and Franklin, where both Fabric and Edwards Kitchen are located. So
Is that where the old laundromat used to be? Not laundry, it was a dry cleaner and wine.
yes, that's right. A wine place before that, even, that's correct. I don't recall the name. I think that was before my time, but yes.
The Vineyard, I think it was.
Oh, the Vineyard.
Anything going into Huckleberry, the old location?
I know what the owners had told me when they first met with me when they bought the building, and they wanted to keep Huckleberries there as long as they could. If that's what they're still planning on doing, I'm not 100% sure yet.
Well, when I went by, all I see is a piano in there or something.
A piano?
Yeah.
Interesting. I'll get further information from when I meet with the owners on what their exact plans are.
When I came down tonight, I looked in, oh, the piano was back there. Sun was going through just right.
And for any property owners on Main Street who are listening, I do have an interested person in property in the downtown area. Doesn't have to be on Main Street, but in the downtown area. Looking for roughly 750 square feet.
Okay. All right.
That's everything I've got.
Okay.
Should we talk about the PPI that maybe is going forward or not? And what the extended part of that might be?
Yeah, I think the only people who might know anything about that are maybe us three, or I'm not sure if John Paul's even in the building, but if you'd like to talk about it, I think that'd be good.
So, Main Street's been working on a canopy grant through the Maine Department of Forestry. And that's where we applied for a planning grant for that, and that is to get a plan together on how maybe to, I guess, revegetate trees in the downtown district, and also to do an inventory of trees. We've also had an offer from Matthew Cunningham, who is a native son but a well-known landscape architect in Boston that opened an office in Portland too. And he's offered to do some pro bono work associated with that, which would be to sort of come up with renderings once a plan is developed. And then there's a beautification committee in Main Street, Bucksport, headed up by Meg Kay, and she also looked into a sidewalk and bicycle path grant and had a visit from Patrick Adams from the DOT. And he came down and met with the committee, I think, and then he made them aware of that. Well, they had arranged a site visit for him to come, which Caitlin
Hullett
from the assessor here in town, myself, and who else was there?
William Foster from the Senior Center.
Okay. And William Foster. It was a cold day. We went out, kind of ended quickly because we came to the bump in front of the old Merrill Bank building, and then the one in front of Jed Prouty, which he right away said, whoops, we got a problem here. He said, you probably don't want to do anything down past Main Street on sidewalks with these two things in a sidewalk, which he said are not compliant whatsoever. And he said that the only way to correct them would be to level them out, which would mean that if you put trees, like one of the ideas in the canopy was to revegetate by the fountain, I think. But he said one way you could fix that would be to go in front of the steps there in both places. But in that discussion, he said, really maybe what you want to do is apply more for is it an MPI?
MPI is the grant I got for walls. It's
Right. So they have these MPIs and VPIs, which are village
planning initiatives.
Planning initiatives. In the village plan, essentially the MPI has to do with the road itself, and it has to be a state road, which Main Street and Central Street are. And a VPI has to do with slowing down traffic, kind of. And it also can incorporate lots of other things, the VPI. And there's two ways to do a VPI. There's sort of a small one where the town has to match it dollar for dollar. So it's 50/50, and the town has to, if the grant is given, the town has to administer the grant. So like Rich running around doing all these walls and stuff. So it puts a lot of pressure on town personnel. He said what you really probably ought to do is a VPI and not one of the smaller ones, which are $400,000 or $500,000. You should do one of the larger ones, which they got $3 billion plus from the COVID bill in December. And in it were these VPI initiatives, which they hadn't even quite formulated yet, which is really good for us. And those have to be a minimum of $5 million. And they go up to much higher. And they're very interested in sort of seeing some of those put together. We asked for an example, and they said Sanford is one that sort of had multiple things like we were starting down the path to, and they're working into a $20 million one. So, and what was really music to, you were there at the
Yes.
meeting, Rich was at the meeting, and Caitlin, and it works, it's an 80-20 split. So let's just say the town put together some big thing to a VPI, which would be to change the sidewalks in Main Street to make them more friendly, and you bring trees in and landscaping, and it could cover benches, lots of stuff, he said. It's an 80-20 split, so let's just say it was a $10 million deal. Well, the town would be $2 million, and everybody at the table says, well, they're never going to go for that, you know, the town council. But the DOT is so interested in these that their plan is to offer towns that will sort of start down this path. It's a fairly long road. That they would split the 20%. So DOT would pay for 10%, the town would only have to commit to 10%. And then the real music to the ears of Rich and Caitlin was that DOT 100% administers the project. So literally, Rich doesn't have to do anything. So then he suggested the way to approach this is to do this relatively easy PPI grant, which is usually around $40,000-$50,000. You get to use all these DOT providers, planners, and things like that. And I think that's the regular, is that a regular 50-50 split?
That is a 50-50
It's a
split.
50-50 split. But it's, you can sort of apply it right now and get it relatively quick. They kind of want you to do this, to do these. And then you sort of put a plan together, and you can maybe incorporate the work already that's been done with the canopy and, you know, the availability of Matthew Cunningham. And so you sort of put together this really expensive plan. And here's the thing that's pretty interesting about it. So you put it all together, and I guess you work with the DOT to do that. So you have it together, and you have to get the council buy-in for their share before you submit the grant. You can't submit it saying, you know, if you'll give us the 10 million, we'll go see if we can get the million. You got to say, we'll commit to the million. So it's a pretty interesting project. It's a major, major deal.
These are, you had said at one point, Ron, this is just on state roads, so Central Street and Main, or could this encompass all of the sidewalks?
It could be the, you know, we talked to Patrick saying what we really want to do, or what we thought would do. And the other requirement in both the planning grant and the grant itself is you have to have public buy-in. It requires 2 public meetings, one in the beginning and one at the end of the planning process. And, you know, and one of the things I brought up was the town seems to have a lot of planning fatigue. You know, they've had a lot of studies done, ADAPT and all of that. But this one, it's kind of, you do the planning, and then you got to sort of get off the pot and say, yes, we'll go forward with this. And basically what he was saying, that's the hard part. And he says if you get that, he didn't say for sure you'll get this grant, but it sounded like the state has got the money, they got to place it, or they got to replace people applying for this from this federal grant and these VPIs. So it's new. The time frame is over the next 3 to 5
3
years.
years.
Yeah, and it looked like, I mean, I don't know what this walk cost, but I'm assuming it was a major grant.
That was done in sections, though.
Right.
For, yeah, several years.
It'd be nice to have more done there.
And the other thing he said was that, you know, that one of the beautification committee had talked about, well, what if we could widen the sidewalks a little bit on one side? And, you know, bring some of the stuff out to the street, like, you know, maybe McLeod's would seat people out there. Well, the way they do that is they'll come in and set up a demonstration project. I mean, literally, he said they use pallets and put stuff over it. And he said a lot of towns like us don't really want to deal with wider sidewalks in the winter. So when it comes to the actual plan, you do those sort of bump outs so they aren't permanent, that they're sort of up and down as the season. But remember, the overriding thing that this is trying to accomplish is to slow down traffic on that main street.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if you sit there on that main street, you know, you got a logging truck roaring through there, you got the big tanker trucks roaring through there. It's so they deal with crosswalks differently, the whole thing, but it sounded pretty interesting.
It does.
So would it be from the lights down here all the way?
Well, it's what
to like the laundromat?
you devised the plan to
Right, but
be.
when you were talking, were you
Well, the
thinking
beautification committee had talked about the library down to the
the library down?
We get that magic number for the
But
Raise the
you,
power again?
I mean, think about
Power.
it. You've had Huckleberries move down to where they are. I mean, ultimately, if that's the downtown business district, if Bucksport wants to get a more thriving business district, you know, you might plan ahead for that. And the thing that really intrigues me now, if Whole Oceans really is starting back up, then those TIFs become real again.
Right.
So it's kind of all like, there's a pile of little pieces, and they seem to be sort of starting to go together. Now, whether they do or not,
Right.
I don't know. And even the Canopy grant involves public participation, that planning grant. And the other thing they do is the people that come in on the PPI, they'll assess everything that's already been done. So they'll look at ADAPT, they'll look at, you know,
And those
probably
will
this
be about
housing
that.
thing over here, and they'll look at all that.
And we have the plans from when we did the study with the Historical Society, raising and all that. We have all that work done by
Right.
Lewis and Malm.
Yep.
Remember, this is a minimum of 5 million. I can't,
You said that the primary focus of this is to slow down traffic.
right, this is from the U.S. Department of
But
Transportation.
wouldn't it also address our concerns about our sidewalks?
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's all
that too.
encompassing.
Yeah,
So, I mean, to me, that's as much of a selling point to the community.
well, that's why he brought it up, because he thought that, sort of the way we were going about it is, he says, if you fix over here, if you put trees in here, you might have to tear them out when you fix, because if you think about it, that, especially the hump in front of the old bank, there's no wheelchair in the world, that person that can go up and over that.
Right.
And on top of that, that's not very safe or walkable in the winter.
Is
It's
that-
pretty steep.
Would that wall survive? Do you
We
want to
talk-
talk
we-
about this?
Yeah.
I'll just leave it.
It's the reason why they say you should do the planning, because when you do stuff like the walls, or we just did the sidewalks 5 years ago, we're doing them again because we didn't put a plan in place. When the public says do something, we do it without planning, and now you've spent X number of dollars on sidewalks, X number of dollars on walls, only to, if we would have took
We
our
talked about it.
time and looked at the holistic picture,
Was all
that's,
the historical significance of the fountain in front of the Jed Prouty.
Yeah, there's two
Well,
of the
that's
elm
it.
trees that were there. There were
Yeah.
two giant elm trees right there. I can remember one of them.
Yes. Yeah, so that's,
And I think that happened when Main Street was redone. So Main Street, back up until in the late 80s, if my history reminds me correctly,
Yeah.
Main Street was redone, and there was more added over there. And I believe the fountain may have been impacted by that. There used to be parking spaces in front of it as well. The parking spaces were eliminated.
they got rid of the parking spaces just as late as 8 or 9 years
Yeah,
ago.
I'd say, yeah.
Just recently, they got rid of those. I say recently, 8 or 9 years ago, but I mean, it was somewhat recent that they got rid of the parking spaces there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sort of the most amazing part of the meeting to me was you got the sense in the whole meeting from this Patrick, and then since then, Caitlin has talked to Martin, I forget his last name, but that was the
The
contact
VPI.
person they gave.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like these people are really looking to try to get a couple of these started.
Right.
Yeah, it took Sanford 7 years, 5 years, 7 years.
Well, he said
Well, they're planning.
this is new,
Yeah.
but they've tried a lot of things that they've sort of put together to go forward in this.
And clumped it all together so that, but it's years planning, and we have years
A
of
lot of
planning
it.
between the ADAPT and the Heart and Soul and the Comprehensive Plan and the Historical Society.
Well, we did talk about doing a sidewalk, like a master plan for a sidewalk this year, to at least know what we're doing, so that would fit in with this as well.
I mean, we didn't bring up things like, burying wires or anything like that, but
Be nice.
Is there any insight on what that would do to parking? What that would do?
well, we had a lot of discussion about parking at first because, the beautification committee had talked about some of the parallel parking spots, not many, but a few from, I think, McLeod's down to the dress shop there. It wasn't many. But I think the whole idea of the plan was the town has spent a bunch of money to get really superior parking right in the middle of Main Street. You've got 3 of them, major parking lots. You got the one at Community Pharmacy, you got the one that got finally repaired in the middle, and then you have the other one that was already there. And then not very far away, way less than, say, in a Freeport with the big parking lot, you have the one at the Congo Church. And that's right in the heart of the business district. And on top of that, you have some dedicated parking lots, like this one, the one at the marina, and then at the town wharf. So, I brought up the slanted parking, but Caitlin was like, no, you never can get rid of that. But he noticed that those are longer than maybe need be. And he said that the 2 sides of the road aren't even now. He said it looked to him like leaving all of those, you could move the center line over. But you can't just do it. You have to change the crown of the road. So that's why he said you really want to get this whole thing thought out, and this may be an opportunity to really do it. Now, would it be a nightmare when it's done? Probably, yeah. But Bucksports can divert traffic off Main Street.
Very easily, if it has to.
And the other thing is, because of the size of the grant, it would have to go to the voters anyway, because it'd be more than 300,000. That would be the town share.
Right.
So it's all a time. We talked. It's a timing thing.
Yeah.
So you want to have it lined up with your June or November. So
And like Ron said, it would be helpful if the tip.
But, if you can
Absolutely.
yes.
spend $1 million and get 10 million,
Yeah.
get 10 million, it's kind of like, it's something to think about.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd take that deal.
If you're offering it, I'll take it too.
I don't have the money,
Any other
No, I
new
want
business?
10.
All right, item 8, schedule next meeting. Is everybody okay with Monday, May 9th?
For Steve and anyone that doesn't recall, we typically meet the second Monday of the month. At the beginning of the year, it's a little tougher because the council in January picks their committee, so we meet after the holiday, and then in February this year it happened to be Valentine's Day, so we met on a Tuesday, but we're back on our normal every second Monday, as long as there's business to talk about.
All right. Item 9?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Thank you, everybody.